Undercover boss orders pancakes, stops cold when waitress reveals she's living on instant noodles. A diner that opens at dawn doesn't just serve coffee, it reveals the things not written in any report. The morning light had yet to pierce the thin layer of fog outside the window. Sunrise Diner Branch number 17, tucked into a quiet northern town, started its day with the familiar chime of the doorbell and the scent of fresh pancakes sizzling on the griddle. A man walked in, wearing a faded khaki jacket, a low-pulled baseball cap, and worn but clean shoes. He chose a table by the window and quietly sat down like any other regular customer. No one recognized him. It was Michael Carter, CEO and founder of the Sunrise Diner chain. At 50, he no longer appeared in business news features or shareholder meetings. He was now a man returning quietly to his roots, where he once poured coffee and wiped down tables when Sunrise was just a roadside breakfast stop. And today, he had returned, not to check revenue or expansion strategy, but to answer a much more personal and difficult question: why had a branch praised as stable seen 3 resignations in a single month? Reports from the regional manager were vague: relocation, personal matters. But anonymous emails sent to the internal inbox told another story. No one dares speak the truth. Open your mouth, lose your shift. We're not quitting because we're lazy. We just can't survive on what the system allows. Michael didn't reply to the emails. He didn't call an emergency meeting. He rented an old truck, changed his appearance, and showed up as a walk-in customer, just like the kind his system was supposed to serve every day. A cup of hot coffee was placed in front of him, and he waited, not to be served, but to see what the numbers had missed. Some truths don't need to be shouted, just quietly drop between bites of breakfast. Michael ordered the traditional pancakes and black coffee, a routine he'd followed since Sunrise was just a tiny breakfast stand. The person who brought his food was Emily, a waitress in her early 20s, hair tied high, uniform neat, but her shoes worn and her eyes always dodging when a customer tried to chat too long. She worked as if trying to fold herself into the rhythm, quick, quiet, always finding a way to stay behind others when the place got busy. Michael watched every movement, every hurried step. And then, just as he was finishing the last bite of his pancake, he asked a question that sounded casual, even accidental. Busy mornings like this must mean decent tips, huh? Emily stood next to the table, preparing the receipt. Her hand paused for a moment. Well, she bowed her head, offering a smile as light as a passing breeze. I usually don't have breakfast. I've been living off instant noodles for nearly a month now. No complaints, no bitterness. But that answer struck Michael like a warning bell. He tightened his grip on his fork. His hand froze in midair. And in that moment, all the charts, performance graphs, and spreadsheets fell silent. Emily hadn't said a word about the system. But her sentence exposed the crack, the place where decency was being left behind, and hard work wasn't even enough to guarantee a basic morning meal. Michael sat motionless, staring at the half-cooled coffee in front of him. He knew this wasn't about tips anymore. It was a wake-up call that even within the very space he had built with ideals of integrity, something was rotting from the inside. Not everyone behind the counter holds the system, and not everyone who serves the customers gets recognized by it. Michael sat silently in the corner booth, his coffee growing colder by the minute. On the table was a receipt showing the name Jay Miller, the person logged into the POS system. But the only person he'd seen serving tables since the doors opened was Emily. She passed table 3 to take a new order, swung by table 6 to handle a request, cleared bowls from table 1, then spun around to deliver a tray to table 8. Every move was swift, precise, but no one let her scan the payment card. Every transaction, even those from customers she had served, was processed by the person at the register. Ryan, the one operating the POS, typed away like a machine, never looking up. Jason, manning the kitchen counter, stood with arms crossed, eyes occasionally flicking to the clock. They only handled their fixed tasks. All floor work fell on Emily. Michael frowned when he noticed the tip receipt from table 4. $5.75 processed by R. Jennings. That table belonged to Emily. Michael quietly pulled a notebook from his coat pocket and began writing. 847, table 4, served by Emily, POS, R. Jennings. 903, table 6, served by Emily, POS, R. Jennings, and it continued that way all morning. After the breakfast rush, as customers thinned out, Emily returned to his table to clear it. She wasn't surprised to see he hadn't left. In fact, there was something in her eyes as if she had been waiting to be asked. Michael didn't beat around the bush. I saw you handle every table, but none of the receipts have your name. Emily gently bit her lip, then lowered her gaze just like before, set her tray aside, and spoke in a softer tone. I don't have access to the POS system. Only people on a specific list are assigned IDs to receive digital tips. Then she pulled an old notebook from her apron pocket, its corners curled, some pages stained with dried soup. I write everything down. Each table, each time, each tip I should have received. In 3 weeks, if I calculated correctly, I've lost over $520. Michael flipped through a few pages. The handwriting was small and steady. There was no bitterness, no humiliation, just the precision of someone who once believed the system would balance itself if she just kept doing the right thing. But now he knew, not everyone who does the right thing gets acknowledged. And a system can only survive if it's transparent enough for good people not to be forced into silence. He closed the notebook and returned it to her with both hands, as though returning a piece of evidence more valuable than any report he had ever signed. "Did you ever think about giving up?" he asked. Emily nodded slightly, with a faint smile. "Of course, but then I thought, if I don't keep track, who will?" Michael fell silent. He rested his hand on the table, thumb lightly tapping the rim of his ceramic cup, as if weighing something, then slowly asked, "Did you ever try talking to the manager?" Emily nodded, not quickly, but enough to let him know the answer once carried hope. "Yes, I did. Twice. The first time, they said they'd look into system access permissions. The second time, I was moved to the afternoon shift for an entire week, all slow days." She looked up, lips pressed together as if swallowing back what was left unsaid. "After that, I stopped asking, just kept recording and saving, because at least there would be numbers to prove it." Michael took a deep breath. He remembered all the times in the past when he was still the manager of his very first branch telling his staff, "Just do the right thing. The system won't let anyone fall through the cracks." And now, right in front of him, stood living proof that somewhere in the chain of command he built that promise had been bent. Emily bent down to clear the cups. Her voice was low and thin, like smoke drifting across the table. "There were days I only served one table my entire shift. Not because the diner was empty, but because I was assigned to the back corner where barely any customers sit. All the orders were directed to the front. I sat there watching the POS light up, but there was nothing I could touch." Michael looked at her, not with the eyes of a CEO overseeing staff, but as a human being confronting a truth that didn't need a loudspeaker to pierce his chest. "Why didn't you quit?" Emily shrugged, with a faint smile. "I thought about it, but my sister's studying to be a nurse. Our parents passed away early. I'm the only one sending money home every week. And also, if I left, who would have told you all this?" There was no accusation in her question. It was like a daily report, no additions, no drama, just enough to place the weight of responsibility on the listener. Michael pulled out a white card, blank. No name, no title, just a single line of digits. He slid it toward Emily. "If you ever need to say more, call this number. No need to give your name, no need to explain it again. Just be as honest as you've been today." Emily didn't ask, "Whose number is this?" She just nodded a firm, deliberate nod, then tucked the card into her tip logbook, as if it were a piece of evidence or a weapon, depending on what happened next. And for Michael, that was the moment he stopped being an observer. Some truths don't need a microphone. They just need the right moment and enough clarity for the whole room to fall silent. Friday, 8:58 a.m., Sunrise Diner, branch number 17, bustled as usual. The scent of hot coffee mingled with the light humidity after the early morning rain. Customers queued. Staff scrambled between tables. Emily moved quickly, as always, serving, clearing, jotting notes, slipping through the narrow gaps only she seemed to notice. Travis stood firmly at the POS, one hand typing codes, the other holding a half-finished latte. The manager, Mr. Dean, passed by, flashing a half smile at a regular customer. It seemed like any other day until the door swung open. Michael Carter walked in. No heavy coat, no baseball cap, just a dark gray suit and a small USB drive resting in his hand. The entire diner fell into a hush. Emily froze. Travis dropped his cup lid. Dean staggered a step when he saw that face. No one had time to ask, because Michael walked straight to the POS where the screen was looping ads for the breakfast specials and plugged in the device. The screen dimmed, then displayed the first video. Clip 1. Emily takes the order and serves table 7. The footage is clear, but when the customer pays, Travis steps in, swipes the card, and the system displays T. Griffin, $6.2 tip. Clip 2. Audio not perfect quality, but Mr. Dean's voice is unmistakable. "If you want to get tips, you have to work here 6 months, or get my recommendation." Final clip. Emily, in the break room, opens a locker, pulls out a packet of instant noodles, pours boiling water into a styrofoam cup. She says nothing. No one else is in the room. Just the ceiling camera capturing a woman eating between shifts, like it's the only way to survive the job she needs. No applause, no murmurs, only silence thick as fog. Michael turned around. His voice wasn't loud, but each word sliced through the heavy air. I didn't build Sunrise Diner for someone to survive on instant noodles, nor for decent people to be erased from the roster just because they weren't on the approved list. He looked directly at Dean, the manager, then at Travis. Dean Raleigh, as of this moment, you are no longer a manager at any Sunrise location. Travis Griffin, your contract ends immediately. Your system access will be disabled within 30 minutes. A slight nod. Mara from Internal Audit stepped forward, handing each of them a sealed envelope. No explanation needed. Michael turned back to the staff and customers. Starting today, the POS system will be upgraded across the entire chain. All transactions will display the server's ID in real time. No more waiting to qualify, no more assigned access. And he paused, eyes landing on Emily, still standing at the edge of the counter, tray in hand. Because if anyone qualifies, it's those who didn't give up even when the system gave up on them. And in that moment, the morning light streamed through the large front window, casting a beam onto the POS screen, now showing only one line. Update in progress, system reset initiated. For the first time in months, Sunrise Diner was starting over with the very things it had once overlooked. Michael had stepped into the story, and this time, he couldn't walk away without fixing the system he once believed was fair. In the soft glow filtering through dew-lined glass, the entire room seemed to pause for a few seconds, and then the steady rhythm of the diner resumed, but no longer the same. A customer near table 5 gently set down his fork, nodding at Emily. No words were exchanged, but the silence no longer felt like avoidance. It was recognition. Michael took a step back, making room for Emily. No one told her to say anything. But in that moment, she looked down at the tray in her hands, then gently placed it on the counter right next to the POS screen, where the words, "System Reset Initiated," were still blinking. She turned toward Dean and Travis, not with bitterness, not with anger, just the gaze of someone who no longer needs recognition to know she was right. I used to think I was the only one writing things down, but it turns out what I did was enough to call out a system that no longer deserved to stand. Dean didn't reply. He turned away and hurried toward the back exit. No one stopped him because now the diner didn't need to preserve face for what had already gone wrong. Travis quietly removed his apron and laid it on the counter. His latte was still warm, but no one touched it. At the back, Mara turned to Michael and said softly, "We'll deploy the tech team to update the POS system within 48 hours. All data will be migrated, and server IDs will be tied directly to the staff's real names." Michael just nodded. His eyes rested on the notebook Emily still kept in her apron pocket, and this time, he spoke with a tone that was almost an apology. It never should have come to this notebook. But it's what reminded us of what we once built and who we built it for. As in, Emily didn't reply. She simply rotated the notebook, flipped to the page still stained with soup, where the ink had smeared from hurried writing. Then she quietly tore a corner from that page and placed it on the counter right next to the USB Michael had just unplugged. On it, just one handwritten line, "Those who serve others deserve to be served by fairness." And then, everything returned to its regular rhythm. The kitchen called out new orders. A customer raised a hand for a coffee refill. Sunlight glinted off the pastry case, highlighting the freshly grilled pancakes. But deep within Sunrise Diner, what had changed wasn't the POS screen. It was how people began to look again. Who is serving? And who is being overlooked? What's right doesn't need applause. It only needs to be done and upheld. 1 month later, Sunrise Diner. Branch number 17, once a place where a young woman had to survive on instant noodles, now operates under a new rhythm. Not because of a fresh coat of paint, not because the furniture was replaced, but because the POS system now reflects what once seemed like the smallest thing: who is truly serving. Near the cashier, a new digital screen displays transactions in real time. Tip sharing real time. Verified by name, Emily. Table 3, 200. Emily, 752. Table 5, $3. 75. Luis, 0.7. Kara, no need for nominations. No more asking, who got the tips today? Because the system now answers clearly and publicly. And Emily, the one who once quietly recorded every missing dollar in an old notebook, no longer waits tables. She now leads a team of new hires as the Assistant Regional Operations Supervisor, directly training, auditing, and upholding the company's new principles: transparency, fairness, and no one left behind. At her first training session at branch number 21, Emily didn't start with a PowerPoint presentation. She placed her old notebook on the table, opened to the first page, stained with coffee and smudged ink, and pointed to a faded line. "Write it down to remember. Count it so it won't be forgotten." Then she spoke, slowly. "Here, no one needs to be better than the others. They just need to be honest in their work and believe the system will be honest in return." On a weekend morning, Michael returned to branch number 17 this time, without any disguise. He sat at his usual corner, ordered a plate of pancakes and a black coffee as always. Before leaving, he tucked a folded $20 bill under the edge of the plate, along with a small handwritten note in blue ink. "Thank you for doing what's right, even when what's right couldn't pay for breakfast." No one knew who the man was, but when Emily picked up the note and read it, she just smiled. She quietly folded it up and tucked it into the middle of her old notebook, as if that was the final page she'd been waiting for all these months. 1 week after that morning, during the monthly meeting at Sunrise Diner Group headquarters, Michael Carter stood before the board to present new policy changes, and for the first time in years, he said nothing about revenue, cost structures, or expansion models. Instead, he talked about Emily, not as a model of perseverance, but as living proof of something no financial report could capture: that a system only stands strong when it protects the ones who quietly do the right thing, not the ones who know how to attach their name to someone else's effort. After the meeting, an email was sent to all branches, containing just one image: a POS screen displaying the line, 746, table 3, 2 point, Emily, with the subject line, "Your name deserves to be seen." At branch number 12, a new employee named Kyle, seeing his name on a tip receipt for the first time, teared up. He sent Emily a direct message through the internal system. "Thank you. Because of this system, I finally believe that doing the right thing is enough." Emily replied with just an emoji. And the message: "No one pours this coffee for you, but someone will always see it." Her old notebook, once filled with small, quietly recorded figures, is now displayed with care in the executive office, beneath a mounted plaque engraved with the words, "Every receipt is effort, every name deserves protection, just like the system itself." And in a private interview with a hospitality trade publication, when asked why he overhauled an entire company mechanism just for one staff member who lacked POS access, Michael simply smiled. "I didn't change the system because of Emily. I changed it because of us, for all the Emilys we lost before we ever asked how they managed to survive." Sometimes, what makes a system truly sustainable isn't technology, capital, or growth strategy. It's something far smaller: whether the person doing the real work gets to see their name.